I am Paula Bennett and welcome to my podcast, Ask Me Anything. Through plenty of ups and downs in my life and have learned a lot along the way. But now that I've got a midlife crisis reinvention under my belt, I know it's never too late to learn something new. That's why on this podcast, I'm talking to Kiwis from all walks of life to hear about how they got to where they are and get some advice and guidance on some of life's biggest questions. This week, we are going to talk about something that actually came up in last week's podcast with Barry because I feel like we're all getting a bit grumpy. We've had a dramatic start to the year with flooding, a cyclone, and let's be frank, no summer whatsoever in the North Island. All the while we're facing a cost of living crisis, climate change, inflation. The list just seems to go on. How do we cope with all this being thrown at us? My guest this week is clinical psychologist Jacqui Maguire. Jacqui is passionate about helping us all live a good life. So this week we've got advice on how we cope through permacrisis. Welcome in, Jacqui.
Thank you, Paula. Lovely to be here with you.
How are you?
How am I? I, like everyone else, have had an interesting start to 2023, but today I'm okay. So thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Okay, my housekeeping rules are I'm allowed to ask anything, but no one has to answer them.
Okay, done.
It's a good rule in life, really. And then we just do safe space, so it's just no judgy.
Well, you'd hope as a clinical psychologist that is a skill set I have mastered by now.
Well, I would hope that. I will promise you that I'm not judgy.
Perfect.
Good. Okay, let's do a couple of icebreaker questions to ease us in. Have you got a favourite book from when you were a child?
Oh, from when we were a child, Goodnight, Mr. Tom is my favourite book as a kid. Set in the war about an old grumpy man that has an orphan come to, a young child that's been sent away for war, come to live with him, breaks down his barriers. And if you're going to ask for a childhood classic, that would be one.
Oh, I might have to dig it out for the grandchildren.
Yeah.
There you go. If you could eat one meal for the rest of your life, no calories, no guilt for that, what's the favourite?
Oh, I've got two. One would be mango sticky rice dessert, which is like if you've ever travelled around Asia, my husband would laugh and say wherever we went, that's what I would order.
Yeah.
Or peanut butter and banana on toast.
Peanut butter and banana. Oh, not sure about that.
On good sourdough. You have to try it.
Okay.
Good sourdough bread.
Not judgy, you see?
Yeah, not judgy. See, you taste it and
try
your world will be opened fuller.
Well, I do peanut butter and Marmite on the same piece of toast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well.
Okay, see, I'll be non-judgy on my end on that. Okay.
You try that then one day.
I'll swallow my judgment from that.
Okay, Jacqui, in the next segment, we're going to get some advice from you for the general population on how we're dealing with permacrisis and being a bit grumpy and dealing with everything. But first up, I'd like to get to know a bit about you and your professional experience, and then let's get into just some of the massive big events that we've seen and the effects that's having on people. So tell me about you.
So my name is Jacqui. I'm a mum of two young girls. I've got a 3.5-year-old and an almost 2-year-old.
Wow.
My career obviously is as a clinical psychologist, but I'm probably not your regular clinical psychologist. That when most people think about my peers, they think about people sitting in a room providing therapy, whether that be to individuals or families or groups. And I went through university battling with the fact that I was in this degree because I got good grades, and that's the pathway you follow. When you get good grades in psych, you go into clin psych. But I had a love for business, and so I just had this internal grapple the entire time around, I'm doing this degree, I'm getting good grades, everyone wants me to stay in it, but actually I'd really love to go and be an entrepreneur and work for myself and be in the business world. And so I think thankfully from some generous people along the way and opportunities that arose, I was able to meld those things together. So my working life now mostly involves supporting local and international businesses to care for mental health at work. And really that involves working with boards, executive teams, training leaders about how to care for their people, because most leaders don't get that training along the way. You become a leader because you're good at your skill set. So that's how I spend my working part to my life. And then for fun, I podcast, I write kids' books, I do other stuff. That's the joyful bit on the side.
And I bet those two children keep you very busy too.
They do. They're bestest mates. They're 21 months apart, and anyone that's had children that close together know that you're just in a constant state of chaos.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's get into it a bit. I mean, we saw the flooding in Auckland at the end of January, then Cyclone Gabrielle, of course, and then we've just seen areas of the North Island just left absolutely devastated. Do you think we deal with these kind of crises in New Zealand very well, as far as our mental health is concerned? Not.
I think, does anyone in the world deal with this stuff very well? Look, I think if you look historically back, yes, I think we supported Christchurch very well after the earthquakes. I actually think New Zealand came together very well in putting really good implemented plans in place and acknowledging the needs for people. I think if you look after the mosque attacks, again, I think New Zealand rallied around. So I think in crisis, we are very good at identifying need and stepping up and being there for our people. I think it's then about really, as a human being, how do we react to absolute devastation and disaster? And I think for all of us, there is great impact, whether you're in it or observing it. There are phases and stages that people travel through in the wake of that.
Yeah. It was fascinating. I was in Christchurch just last week and I was talking about the quakes because it was that 12-year anniversary. And one of the women said to me, she said, I knew that I had some real issues when the aftershock stopped, years later, of course. It's not like it was just a few months. And she said, and I realised that I actually missed the adrenaline from them.
Isn't that interesting? And what just becomes your norm as well, and what that physiologically does to you if your body's in such a state of hypervigilance for years.
Yeah. And so there must be people that are dealing with the worst of these events that we've seen more recently. That will be like even the rain coming. I heard thunder again the other night, and I've got to say it made me jump. So that heightened awareness of kind of where they're at, let alone dealing with the actual loss of a loved one, loss of all of your possessions.
Yeah, and I think no two natural disasters or crises are ever the same, but there are some very similar patterns through them. And I think if you look at emergency management experts that have dealt with people, for example, after Black Saturday in Australia, or after flooding in Brisbane, or after the Christchurch, I think it's really useful to break down the response to disaster in 3 phases. And the first phase is your adrenaline phase. It's your fight or flight. You are constantly facing threat, and you're in this very practical black and white mode of just doing what needs to be done and getting through, be it scaling a wall, to get away from flooding, or dealing with the insurance company, or moving from temporary accommodation to temporary accommodation, or trying to get your money coming into your business if that's been impacted. So those initial kind of weeks, and that cannot just be a week or 2, that could be months that you're in that phase. And I think you really think of that as people are just in survival mode. People probably aren't thinking very clearly in that mode because you are just in that tunnel vision, needing to do what's in front of you. But like soaking in information, etc., is really bloody hard when you're in that mode. Also, you hear and you see people on the news saying, like my kids are having to come and feed me because I'm not even remembering to eat, etc. So that initial stage, I think, is characterised by high action, and also actually through that time, those that are in the impacted communities, you see an amazing bond that starts to form between people that are all in the same boat together. We call that the honeymoon period, or the honeymoon impact. Like, you look across the country, you saw that when we first went into lockdown and COVID, you see that after the quakes, you see that now, I think, in the Hawke's Bay, where people that have been through it together form very strong bonds. And actually, in a bizarre turn of events, you can kind of almost see a jubilance or a buoyancy through that early stage where people are like, they've got hope and they've got energy and they're going to get through it.
I must admit, I saw an interview this week with a woman in the Hawke's Bay, and she was one that had organised a big meeting for people to talk about crime. She said, these are my family now. My neighbours, my whole street, she was almost slightly giddy from it, she'd done an amazing thing. But you saying that really resonates for me, having heard that just this week, Yeah.
So that's kind of phase 1. And then I suppose when the immediate threat dies down and you are then in trying to navigate recovery, that's what we would call the cortisol phase, or the endurance phase, which is the long road, I suppose, to recovery. And when you look through international data, when you see our experiences down in Christchurch, for example, really it's consistent that can be anywhere from 2 to 5 years to people that are then in this space of really having to find reserves to to keep going, to push on and to rebuild. And I suppose the difference in presentation for people or experience is that the adrenaline stage is activation and you're up in energy. That endurance or cortisol phase, I think you can think of it as a depletion of energy. People get fatigued and tired. People get irritable and shitty. Divisions in communities unfortunately start to arise from things like who was impacted versus who wasn't, who's had insurance payouts versus who hasn't. You know, people's experiences are different. And when people are tired and just bloody over it, that stuff starts to shine through, I suppose. The last stage, I think, then once cities, communities are rebuilt or going back to where they were, is I suppose almost an identity crisis for people of they're back in their homes or they're back in their communities, but they are different now. The community is different, and grappling with that, who am I? Do I want to be here? What meaning does life have now that things are different? And people kind of answering some of those big questions. So I find that quite useful when you think about the impact of disasters and really kind of understanding those phases, because if you have knowledge about that, you then can go, well, what do we need to be doing to protect ourselves and protect other people, given that that's the case from how our bodies respond?
So I suppose that's the question, isn't it? What can they do, those that are really in it? And, I mean, recognising people have lost loved ones, lost pets.
Yeah. Which for some people is huge. It's as big as losing a human as losing a pet for some families, right?
Yeah. So what can they sort of do to try and keep themselves as well as they can at this time?
Yeah. So if you look through any case study, the number one predictor for successful recovery for individuals and communities is what they call social capital. Basically, it's relationships. It's supporting each other through it. So I know that people in those communities have been prioritising connecting and being together, but my prompt is to keep doing that, even as the weeks and months go on. That social capital is what will really benefit you. But then I suppose if you then go through those three phases, Paula, firstly in that adrenaline phase, is actually trying to slow yourself down, to take breaks, to eat, to try and sleep well. If you're not doing that well, to try and ask other people to support you in that, is to really just try and get moments in your day where you can bring your heart rate down, where you can be present in the moment, where you can get a bit of normalcy. You know, it's that get up and have a shower, you know, sit down and eat some food rather than doing it all on the run. You know, like the job will still be there in half an hour. You know, just really try, if you can, to take moments to pause. And I suppose the other part to that is being informed about what's going on, especially when we continue to get weather threats, right? Like I think that's part of the toughness for people right now is it's not just one event. It's not one event you're recovering from. It's multiple, and there continues to be threat, and that threat is real. So people do need to be up to date with information. They do need to have plans about how to manage that, but as best as possible to try and not get completely consumed with it. Like check civil defence notifications twice a day. Don't look at it every 5 minutes and keep refreshing, because that's actually really unhelpful for you. So relationships, your basics for your health, and trying to get some distance from what's going on around you, even if it's in micro moments, I think is really important. As people start to get into that endurance phase, the long-term, I suppose, battle with their recovery and rebuild, I think that is when it's really important that you can take yourself away from it. So when you listen to survivors of natural disasters, they very clearly talk about the need to go on holiday or get out of the region or have time away from what's in front of you, because, you know, it's pretty difficult to be facing that day in, day out, and to really, I think, focus on what you value, you know, what is most important to you in your life. And yep, it is absolutely bloody gutting if you have lost all of your possessions. No one is minimizing that. But what is really important to you? Can you rebuild that? Whereas if you lose people, you can't rebuild them, you know? And so I think it is trying to hold some of what is most valued and dear to you. And if you are somebody that has lost it all, you've lost a loved one, you've lost your livelihood, you've lost your home, and some people are in that situation right now, I think that is trying to hold on to hope, which is things can never stay static. Things will move and change. It feels really difficult right now, but wrap yourself with support to help you get through the darkest days, because when you're in that space, it's bloody hard to find the light and see the light, but there will always be light. So trying to not lose sight of that, because that is my worry in rural New Zealand, which already has significant concerns around mental health.
Yeah.
They're a community, that are known to perhaps not engage with mental health services as much as those living in urban areas, or they've got particular challenges there. And so be kind to yourself and really stick together.
And they can be quite isolated, can't they? There's just no two ways about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think if you've lost the hope today, hopefully your buddy can hold it, and vice versa. Take turns. As long as no one loses hope at the same time, you can take turns for each other.
Yeah. So, Jacqui, is there a difference as to how children cope in this kind of crisis, and equally what we need to do to help them cope?
I think that will depend on every child and the situation they were in. A child that spent 5 hours on a roof with their family will be different to a child that is okay personally, but their school has been impacted. So I think it really, for every family, it's going, how is my child? I'm going to use my parent intuition to go, have they been impacted or not, and how am I seeing that? And then I think if there has been an impact, or you're worried about how they're managing, then it's about having age-appropriate conversations with your kids around what's going on, or explaining to them what's happening, or communicating to them family plans about how you kind of keep yourself safe moving forward. I think mostly children are actually very resilient if their parents are able to be calm with them and to role model what's going on and how they're kind of managing the situation. If the child has seen something that's been particularly distressing, or they've had a major disrupt, that of course is different, and they may need extra support along the way. But getting back to normalcy, being able to hang out with their mates, trying to get back to school, having mum and dad that are there and present and I suppose continuous in how they're responding is really, really helpful. Knowing that we're all human as adults too, and we can't do it perfectly all the time as parents.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
I just say, especially if you've got teens in the house and you're anxious as a parent, like I totally get it, but process your anxiety with other adults, not with your teenage children, even though, at times they can seem like an adult when you're talking to them.
So what can we do then, those of us that were not affected, and are there things that we can do to support them? I mean, there's the obvious giving of donations and things.
I think it's important for us not to forget.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And the immediate aftermath, we're epic at coming together, and look at how many parcels have been put together from the bottom of the South Island all throughout the country. And I think that practical support is really important. But I think as a nation, we have to continue to remember, even though our lives might have normalcy around it, for those that are in impacted regions, be it Northland, West Auckland, Hawke's Bay, Gisborne, actually their lives are going to be different for a long time. Yeah. And so how
even
do we try and hold that?
When they're going through that second stage and they're going through that third stage, it's about how do we stay in touch and do things. And
maybe that's your whānau or friends, or maybe that's your colleagues. Like if you work in a company that's throughout the country, you might be in a meeting with someone that lives in an impacted area, and just like being cognizant of that, that actually their life might be very different to yours, and can you just hold some sensitivity around that? And I think in the early stages, Paula, I go and train leaders on how to talk to their people. And generally I say, start with questions like, how are you? How are you feeling? What's going on? Actually, in this immediate aftermath, asking somebody, how are they, is probably a really ineffective way of starting that conversation, because they're probably not feeling anything, or they have no bloody idea what they're feeling. So I think if you're wanting to kind of have a conversation with someone to check in on them, it's starting with the practicalities. How are you going, moving that silt? Yeah. Have you guys got a place to stay? And then you can move into, are you eating? Are you drinking? Are you sleeping? Yeah. What can we do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to take a break now, and I think we're going to come back and talk more about permacrisis, about how some of us are just dealing with it being quite a bit of a tough year, and how we can look after ourselves a bit more generally.
Sure.
Okay, we are back, and we're doing key advice on how to cope with a permacrisis. Last year, the Collins Dictionary word of the year really hit the nail on the head, I think. Permacrisis, the definition being an extended period of instability and insecurity, especially one resulting from a series of catastrophic events. Man, have we seen that. So we've just been through so much in the last few years, whether that is COVID and lockdowns and weather events. And then, of course, we as people are dealing with the normal stuff that happens in life of its ups and downs. And there's a lot of stuff going on for a lot of people. But what does kind of that state of permacrisis kind of do to our psyche?
It's interesting. I hadn't heard that term. Your lovely producer Kerry sent it to me, and I looked at it and I thought, what is that? I have to Google that. But yeah, in a nutshell, right, it is facing instability and uncertainty continuously. And I suppose my reflection was, is this new to this period, in history? Or actually, has there been periods of permacrisis forever, but we're just really acutely feeling it now? And I think it's the latter. Like, I think if you were living in the 1930s and 40s, you would have been through the war and then the Cold War. Or, if you were an American citizen living in the early 2000s, you would have had terror threats continuously around you. So I think the difference here in New Zealand is we are personally experiencing some of this uncertainty in an ongoing way. Whereas I think, globally, people may have said in recent history and past history, actually, as part of that life, whether it's war or a pandemic or a cyclone, people face trauma and uncertainty and challenge all the time. But in terms of our last 3 years, they've been bloody hard for a lot of people for many different reasons. Why is that, or how does that impact us? The human brain hates ambiguity, hates uncertainty. A sense of security and safety is pivotal for good mental health and well-being. And that makes sense, right? You can think back to your classic Maslow's hierarchy of need, and many people can probably bring a triangle image up in their mind. If you've ever studied Psych 101 or seen it in the newspaper, the bottom of that is that you've got this sense of safety, and that, I think, has been shaken for people, be it from a health perspective during COVID, be it safety and security in your house now that with inflation and cost of living, be it now with weather events in terms of how safe are my family and I, especially when you see even loss of communication, etc. Like, how do we even contact people if that happens in our, community or for those that are living it? So when you think about that level of constant threat, basically how your body responds to that is by turning on your natural survival mode, your fight or flight system, by pumping that adrenaline around your body. But that is designed historically for a singular event. It's designed to get you away from the saber-toothed tiger. It is not designed to be turned on for 3+ years. Yeah. And so the impact on all of us, I think, is when we've run out of our stress hormones, when we've outdone our surge capacity, that's, I suppose, how you can think of it, is that many people get extremely fatigued and tired.
So I was going to say, we're just tired, man.
We're just tired. Like, burnout is on the rise, and there is research from AUT that's clearly showing that our burnout is on the rise. I think people get irritable and shitty and cynical and short-tempered because they're tired, because they're over it. I think that the real sense of powerlessness has been a major factor for people in this country in the last few years.
But then I also feel really guilty for feeling all like that, because I agree with everything you've just said, because actually I haven't been flooded and I haven't been in a house. And so I've been talking to a lot of people and they're all like, well, yeah, I feel the same. I feel exhausted. I feel like I'm at the end of my tether. I'm grumpier than I want to be. I'm just not that happy. And then we all go, oh, but we're okay.
I suppose I'd say, what's the point of that emotion? Like, what's the point of guilt? It's like a really unhelpful emotion. It's there and it's natural. And I think we compare by nature. Human beings, our brains are designed to make comparisons, right? To help us instigate the world. But in this instance, your experience is still your experience. And if I asked you, Paula, in the last 3 years, how has your life changed? I imagine you would say to me, there has still been impacts to you, even if you haven't lost your house or you haven't lost a loved one, or, like being stuck at home and losing your freedom and your ability to feel like you can make choices for yourself is actually a pretty major deal for people. That's a threat to your autonomy. And so I would say, yes, there are people that are probably in much worse situations than you and I, but it doesn't discredit your experience. And actually, where the energy, I think, is much more helpful is going survivor guilt or life being normal, pretty normal guilt is regular. Many of us feel that, but actually my energy is better channeled looking after myself so I've got capacity to help people in need.
I'm confused with this one, so I'm asking it quite genuinely. So one of the things we really need to be doing is talking to each other, checking in on each other, and I'm 100% there. But then I also worry that if we're always a bit down in that we're almost talking ourselves more into it and making it more as well. You know, like I went to an event last week and it was about the forecast for the year, and I just left going, oh my God, that was depressing. So yes, we all need to talk, but are we talking ourselves into more of a permacrisis sometimes?
Well, I think it's a balance, right? So the talking, I think, is we've had a lot of campaigns in this country about checking in with people and making sure that they're okay. And I think that's fantastic that we're more aware of that. I think we have to, if we're checking in with people, we have to have systems that can then support people if they're in need. And that's an entirely different conversation about our level of support that we've got available. But also, people need breaks from hard stuff. Like you talk to people in the midst of grief, you cannot grieve 24/7. You need breaks from it. You cannot face the harsh reality of what's going on all the time. You need moments of joy. And it's very clear in the research to even like baseline with your mood, you need 3 positive emotions to every 1 negative every day just to balance out. So if you want to like feel good in life, your frequency of positive emotion has to be very high. And it doesn't have to be like intense positive emotion. It just has to be like you can have a laugh with someone, or you've greeted each other in the hallway, or you say thank you to someone, or take time to look up from your screen and acknowledge the barista that's making your coffee. Like it's small things that are really important to our everyday functioning.
Can you repeat that? Because I like that. That's 3 to 1.
Yeah, 3 to 1. And, you know, that's probably a very crude measure, but it's repeated pretty regularly in the research. If you're at work in a team, it's 7 to 1. To have a well-functioning team, you need 7 positive emotions to every negative. So, you know, it's like, how do you get those high-frequency positive emotions? And talking about the hard stuff all the time, it's not going to enable you to do that. So there's totally a time and place, but you have to, for yourself and other people, have breaks from it, and to give yourself permission, I think, to have breaks from that.
I also quite often pretend that I'm a lot happier than what I am. Part of that is that I'm so loud, and that I think that I dominate in a work environment quite a bit. So I just sort of thought, I don't want me being droopy around the office. You know, put a bright colour on, give them a smile, give them a hello, you know, and then actually my own mood improves because of it.
Well, emotion is contagious, right? And I think you've got to have your thermometer check. Like if you're going into a room and people have just had mass devastation, you're not going to come in and like chirpy them all around, are you? But there's totally a time and place that mood is contagious. You can acknowledge what's going on, and you can still have positive interactions with people.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with kind of putting a smile on your face and just sort of going, you know, today's a one step in front of the other, and I'm just going to get on and do that.
Yeah, I think where it can become an issue is, I don't know if you've heard of the term toxic positivity, and that's when people cannot acknowledge when things are hard. So just say like, I don't know, you're with a friend, they're going through a divorce, they've got a sick parent, they then have a sibling that's in Hawke's Bay and they've had their life impacted. Like if you come in and you're like, oh, like, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. Like that kind of level of positivity.
Oh.
That's what they would call toxic positivity, which is, can you just bloody acknowledge the hard stuff that's going on?
That's the
don't need you to dwell in it, but you need to just acknowledge it. Yeah. So that full, you know, things will always be brighter, nothing is a problem, we're fine. That toxic positivity can actually cause people to have worse mood.
Well,
can have the opposite effect of what you're trying to achieve.
I was going to say, very irritating. I would find that
totally
very irritating.
Yeah, and most people do it from a good place, right? They want to help you feel better. But actually, you got to sometimes be able to just sit and acknowledge when things are shit.
Yeah. Okay, so then on that, how do we balance the information that we're getting? Because that's kind of the next step to it, isn't it? And we're just seeing some people fall down absolutely hideous rabbit holes on social media and false information, and it's just kind of crazy. Then we're also turning on that news. And, I mean, one of the best things that happened in my week was that the news led with the cricket one night.
Yeah. But I think it's putting boundaries in place, Paula, right? Isn't it? Like you have to, I think, behaviourally put things in place, because the way in which we live now is you can have information in front of your face 24/7. It's not like in the good old days where you only turn on the 6 o'clock news or you get the paper in the morning or night and that's when you see stuff. Like now You can get it in the supermarket line waiting to pick your children up from school in between meetings. Like, it just floods you, right? So I think it's then about how we manage that. And many of us probably have a habitual addiction to checking things, to having notifications pop up, because we're curious. Human beings are curious beings. So I think it is about what impact is that having on your life. For some people, maybe it has no impact and all good. But if you notice that listening to the radio all day decreases your mood, if you feel that you actually get sucked into black holes on social media and afterwards you feel your mood is worse, then you need to note that and go, how do you want to manage it? And I manage that by actually only watching the 6 o'clock news. I'm old school. I don't get my news online. I watch it on the telly. Other people that get it online, I'd say limit yourself to twice a day.
Yeah, be a bit careful.
Be a bit careful how you do that.
So we're heading into winter. We're March now.
Now that's a depressing thought.
I know. So we kind of have that seasonal affective disorder, and that I think is really real, because you definitely feel a different, and part of, I think, how people are feeling right now is because they didn't get a summer. And so they just haven't kind of had that break in that sunshine. Any advice for us as we sort of head into these winter months and how we cope with that?
Well, I think that's a divide in the country, right? Because my brother-in-law's in Otago and he said they've had the best summer they've ever had. So, I think those north in the North Island have had no summer. And I think that has been particularly difficult, not just because of the devastation, but we've just come out of 2.5 years of really difficult times, and people were just so looking forward to their first restriction-free summer. I think there was high expectations, and when the expectations are high, the loss is felt deeply. I think there's grief around that for people. So I think there's division actually in the country over that already. But yes, seasonal affective disorder is real. It's a mood disorder. I think there's a small proportion of people that probably physiologically have seasonal affective disorder, and actually in New Zealand, we get a lot of light. So seasonal affective disorder, they think, is caused by lack of sunlight. Therefore, it interrupts your melatonin and your serotonin, which is your feel-good hormones and the hormones that help keep your circadian rhythm and your sleep. So if that gets disrupted, the thinking is that then causes your irritability, your low mood, your hopelessness, your lack of energy, your change to your eating patterns, etc. I think for other people, part of that winter blues is that it's harder to get outside and exercise. People hibernate more during winter. The things that are actually good for your well-being, socialising, exercising, being out doing fun stuff, that gets harder. And people retreat more to going home after work and putting on Netflix and kind of hibernating through the winter. So I suppose I'd say, yes, seasonal affective disorder is a real thing. But actually, how do we just go, what's important for your well-being? How do you help yourself feel good? And each of us will have different needs in that regard. I heavily use the Māori model of mental health, Te Whare Tapa Whā. I use that to inform a lot of my work, which basically says your well-being has 4 components. It's your physiological well-being, so like your body, how much you sleep well, eat well, rest well, exercise. Your psychological well-being, which is really around that mood stuff. Yeah. How do you get positive emotions? How do you manage if your mind is unhelpful with thoughts? Can you wrangle those, or do you get lost in unhelpful thoughts? There's your social well-being, which is how positive and healthy your connections are. And then there's your spiritual well-being, your wairoa, which I take that as what feeds your soul, and do you do stuff to feed your soul?
Nice.
And so I think it's a really useful way of looking holistically to say, in your life, especially as we get to the harder time of the year for people, have you got things going on in all 4 of those areas, and what's most meaningful for you? Because my well-being, Paula, will look very different to yours, as it will to everybody else in your life. So just being purposeful around it, I think, stopping and reflecting.
And I suppose that's part of it as well. And that, when do I know that I need more help? Because we are all so different, right? I kind of know that if my arm is still hurting after 2 days, that I probably need to go and get it x-rayed, because I probably hurt it quite badly. But do I know that about my soul and my mental health?
Yeah, well, I suppose you can, 1, stop and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your mood at the moment? 1 being absolutely terrible, you can't get out of bed, the life feels dark and hopeless. 10 being, I feel really good, I feel positive in my mood and my relationships, I've got get up and go in my life. Rank it for yourself. My second reflection question would be, are you aware of your signs, or what you start to feel or demonstrate when your mood is slipping. And again, all of us will have different signs on that. Some people have probably done heaps of therapy and they know those signs down packed. Other people may have no idea. And if you're someone who's like, oh, I don't know, Jacqui, how would I know if I'm not doing okay? Then ask someone that knows you well and that can provide some gentle feedback. Don't ask someone that's harsh. But, if someone has known you for a really long time, they will know how you demonstrate stress. They will probably know how you show that you're struggling. I got some lovely feedback from my husband years ago who said I become hypercritical. He can't do anything right when I am not coping very well. That was quite hard to hear at the time, but very useful, that if I get picky and shitty, that for me is a sign of going, stop, actually, Jacqui, this is about you. This is actually not about anybody else. And clinically, I suppose, what's the difference between I'm just having a crap few days versus actually I really need some support, things are hard? I would say there's two factors on that. One, how long has it gone on for? If this is going on for weeks, that's a sign that probably this is not just a glitch, that things are actually pretty tough right now. And if it's getting in the way of living life. So if you can't work well, if you can't relate to your family or your friends well, if you're struggling to do your daily activities, then I'd say that impact is greater than just feeling a bit blah for a few days.
Yeah.
So,
and go and talk to your GP, go and ask for that kind of advice, do the search. You can talk to your local community centres, who also have connections that they can connect you into. So there's no harm in just asking.
No, and I suppose just knowing that you're not alone, like many people this year, I'm sure will experience hardship given what we've gone through. Knowing sometimes that you're not alone with it makes it easier to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we need a little bit of light relief here. So you now get to ask me something.
Okay. Paula, if you take a look back over the last 5 years, what is something you are most proud of?
Oh, most proud of? I'm very proud of my daughter. I'm very proud of the fact that I did transition out of a big Parliament job and into normal life, and that I maintained my close relationships and my marriage through it all.
Big achievements. Nice. I want to ask another one now.
Mm-hmm.
If you look forward in life, is there an area for you that you would still like to grow in? And if so, what is it?
Oh, I definitely want my marriage to keep changing and growing and developing, because I think they should, and I think that's healthy. And then, I've got something else in me. I haven't quite worked that out yet, because I don't mind a bit of chaos and a bit of, you know what I mean? I quite like, I don't have to know everything.
Off the chaos.
Yeah, when you were going, have a plan, I was like, right, whatever. So my husband's a planner, that's okay, so we'll be all right, which I find very exciting.
Okay, because my third light question is, where's your favourite holiday destination?
Oh, look, I just can't quite decide at the moment. I'm like everyone. I do think planning something, and even if it's a weekend away or just, the opportunity to go overseas and get some summer. When you were talking about, what was it, your mango rice? Was that what it was?
Yes.
I was thinking I ate every spring roll in Vietnam once.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was quite easy to do. Okay, thank you so much for your advice today, Jacqui. I really hope it has helped a lot of you that are struggling out there. As Jacqui says, know that you are not alone. You can find more from Jacqui at jacqimaguire.co.nz. But you've got a podcast coming out soon.
I do. The wonderful Antonia Prebble and I are good friends. We had our first babes at the same time, and we have a podcast coming out on March the 8th called What Matters Most. And our hope with that podcast, quite similar to yours, Paula, is let's bring topics that people have big questions about. And we hope people can feel like every week they're sitting in a room having a coffee or a wine with us as we chat and discuss and discover some of the big questions that I think people hold on to.
Oh, I love that. I love it. And that's it for another episode of Ask Me Anything. You can get in touch with me by emailing askpaula@nzherald.co.nz. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram or LinkedIn. Dumped my Twitter account, feels good. Make sure you follow Ask Me Anything on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also read my weekly column in the Herald on Sunday. I'm Paula Bennett. Ask Me Anything. Goodbye.